This week I'm joined by Jeremy Cooper. Jeremy specializes in providing payroll, HR, and benefit services through Paychex. We have a great conversation about exactly what it is that he does, but in particular, if you're self-employed, we spend a lot of time talking about the Employee Retention Tax Credit, a program that a lot of local companies are taking advantage of to get tax credit dollars if their businesses were affected by COVID. So definitely pay attention to that part if it applies to you. I think you'll really enjoy the podcast. So this is the Randy Forcier podcast. If you can do me a favor, follow us on Facebook at the Randy Forcier podcast, subscribe at YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Be on the lookout for the new Instagram page, and thanks for watching. Bit of a background on you, Jeremy. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I am a recent transplant here to Maine. Moved to Maine last summer. Grew up in Western New York. Rochester, New York is where I grew up. Was in Buffalo for the last 9 years. Hence, you can see back here, we got the good old Buffalo Bills sign up there. But yeah, grew up in Rochester. Done a little bit of everything over the years. Kind of changed paths a little bit. I initially went to college to teach math. So a little bit different than what I'm doing now, but it's been great because it's, part of my mind works that way where I like to soak things up like a sponge and then pass it down to others. So that was a great experience. I taught in the poorest city school in Rochester. So that was quite a different experience. Enjoyed it. Teaching was no longer teaching. Math was no longer math once you get to some of the upper level classes. So kind of flip-flopped some majors, went with a math intent to teach major to I had a business minor going, so I kind of just flip-flop those.
Yeah.
Loved business. Started working at Paychex in our telemarketing division.
Is that right out of college?
Yeah. Well, I was doing a server for a few years, worked at a comedy club, which was an awesome job. If anybody can ever get into that, I would certainly suggest it was good money, was fun, the nightlife, meet a lot of great people.
Yep.
That was probably one of my coolest jobs I've ever had.
I'm kidding. So, did that in between college and Paychex. Now you're at Paychex.
Yeah.
How long has it been that you've been part of Paychex?
A long time. They haven't gotten rid of me yet. Yeah, it's been about 11 and a half years. So I started in that telemarketing division, over the phones all day, every day, and then moved out to Buffalo. They had an opening out there. And outside sales is kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to be out visiting people, helping people, doing in-person stuff. So it's great, but I think with some of my past before that, like I went to high school for carpentry through a trade school. It's called BOCES out in Western New York. So that was really cool. Got to build a house basically start to finish.
That's awesome.
Did some roofing and siding and everything like that. So I work a lot with contractors. So it's kind of given me both sides of the fence to understand what they're dealing with and the struggles.
Yep.
11 and a half years now with Paychex in this role for about 10 and a half. And Maine's been great. Moved out here last summer, and people are much different than what I was used to in big city, Buffalo and Rochester and downtown kind of thing.
So what is your role at Paychex?
Yeah, so there's a lot that we do, and I think each rep kind of molds their own role, I guess you would say, within Paychex. Me personally, I am working with these small, medium-sized businesses, typically any business that's got under 2 employees, and as small as companies where it's just the owner.
Yeah.
So we do a lot. Obviously, Paychex, we do handle payroll and the taxes. That's what we're known for.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's more business consulting, helping out with benefits, HR compliance, and some tax strategies. So I work with the accounting community for a decade now, and I like to learn from them and then give suggestions to the clients of, hey, here's some ways to keep Uncle Sam off your back and out of your pockets. So it's a great way to be involved with the community. I know you do a lot of work with the community, a lot of involvement there. So it's great. I've done a lot of coaching over the years for my son's baseball team. And it seems like that's a lot of what this is as well, as I'm doing business coaching and helping people run their business, let them focus on the revenue generating aspects while we take care of the rest of it. So I thoroughly enjoy. I get to make my own schedule, out and about, work with people like yourselves in our networking groups.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you talk about your background in teaching, coaching, I think it makes sense to be able to apply that to sales and educating people and like you said, letting them focus on their business and taking care of this aspect of their business so they don't have to. Now, is the way you grow your business mostly through accountant referrals? Is that your main target for people to work with, and they kind of help you help make connections from there, or are you just going directly to the business owners?
Great question. So some reps do a ton, and that's where they get all their business from, mainly from the accounting industry. I've found that I really enjoy working a lot with the bank industry and the insurance agents, just because I feel like there's more of the proactive going out and prospecting to get clients, where the accountants aren't typically as much of a outgoing people person. They're a little bit more harder to tap into at times, but when you do, you can build a great relationship. But I really enjoy working with the banks, and typically, kind of similar age group as well, hungry, out there, pounding pavement, networking groups. And a lot of it's just mainly from word of mouth and referrals, whether it's happy clients, insurance agents, bankers, some CPAs, and just kind of getting out there and working with, like our group at the B&I group over at Run of the Mill each week.
Yeah. I did not realize that the banking was such a big aspect for you. For some reason, I always just associated the way you grow your business with CPAs. But CPAs are tough, like you said, to track down sometimes when they're in the middle of tax season. It's hard to get a meeting, build a relationship. If you are able to, I'm sure you can benefit greatly from that. But the banking people do make sense. They're trying to grow their book of business at the bank. You guys are doing the same thing, pounding the pavement, so it makes sense to align yourself with that. Networking has been good for both of us, I would say. So there's a bunch of different avenues that you're obviously working on to grow your business. What's the ideal client for you? Size? I mean, I know you mentioned like what you'd want to stay under, but like what's the perfect client for you?
Yeah, I really appreciate working with the food and beverage industry. I was in the industry for about 5 or 6 years. Always wanted to run my own bar, grill, restaurant. But especially with what COVID's done for the industry, the employee pool isn't the same as what it was. It's gotten more difficult to find and retain good employees. And I know that the industry got crushed with COVID, especially with the restricted capacity levels and everything like that. So, I really enjoy working with them. It's funny, I still have nightmares about being in the restaurant industry. So just a couple of months.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so like a couple of months ago, I had a dream that I was back at Outback, and I'm at the POS machine trying to punch things in, can't find anything in the systems. You can't get to all your tables. Food's coming out late. And this has been over 10 years now that I've been out of the restaurant industry, and I still have these nightmares. So it's a bit of a love relationship. Yeah, the restaurants are great. And we'll kind of probably jump into it a little bit more, but the employee retention tax credit has been a big component to that, and some value that I can bring back to the industry and put some money back in their pocket. So I really enjoy the food and beverage industry. That's one area that's a great referral for me. New businesses are awesome. There's so much that they don't know. And when you have yourself surrounded by good people, whether it's a really good accountant or CPA, a really good lawyer, or business consultant like myself, that can really help you hone in on what you need, tell you what questions you should be asking, and guiding you through the process. So for a new business, there's just so many different pieces of the pie. From, what do I do? Do I have to set up as a corporation or an LLC, or what's best fit for me? I'm not the end-all be-all, but I can certainly talk to, here's some of the reasons why people set up this way versus the other. Here's some of the benefits, some of the tax savings, things to consider when starting your business.
Yep. What are some of the benefits that Paychex is able to provide outside of the payroll stuff? I know you said just benefits in general, but what specifically?
So, with starting off, when you're hiring an employee, or even if you're just going to put yourself on payroll because you're an LLC being taxed as an S corporation, or you just went straight to setting up as a corporation, we can walk through and give them guidance on how to pay themselves, how to structure that pay, whether it's through payroll, whether it's K-1 distributions. But with that, at least in the state of Maine, once you're at that point of paying yourself or an employee, there's 2 state applications that need to be done. We can walk them through how to do that. We can do it with them or for them. But when they hire, there's some other requirements as well, like workers' comp. So that's one area where, working with the insurance agents, we can work together to get them a policy set up, and then we can do what's called pay-as-you-go workers' comp. So let's just say, Randy, you were opening up a construction company. Instead of having to come up with this big down payment for workers' comp that could be several $1,000s when you haven't really brought in revenue yet, this is where instead of coming up with a big down payment, every time you process payroll, we take the payroll, we multiply by the workers' comp rate, we figure out the math, and we pay that directly to the carrier. So it eliminates the down payment, eliminates it streamlines some of the cash flow, and it eliminates a lot of the audit time frame each year.
That seems huge. I did not realize that workers' comp was basically an insurance policy. That people may have to pay up front if they don't do what you talked about. It's a lot of money to spend, I guess. I don't know what we're talking about. I'm sure we're talking thousands of dollars, but for a company that hasn't brought any revenue in, it could be an issue.
Yeah, in certain industries it's more prevalent than others, especially construction, because workers' comp's based on your exposures, and the workers' comp rate is basically a percentage of your payroll. So, for example, a roofer may pay upwards of 40% in workers' comp. So if you pay somebody $1,000, you'd also potentially have another $400 in workers' comp just on that employee that week. So it's definitely a great way to streamline the cash flow, take some of that off of their shoulders, and just let us administer it.
Yep. Why don't we talk about the employee retention tax credit? Something we've talked a lot about. Tell the listeners what exactly that is.
Yeah, a lot of business owners that have been around now for a few years are familiar with the PPP loan, which was a great resource for businesses to get some money from the government that were impacted by COVID.
Uh-huh.
Similar, this employee retention tax credit, as the name kind of alludes, if you were able to retain your employees and continue operating, this program is a great way to get back up to $26,000 per employee. Basically, it's a percentage of your payroll that you had in 2020 and 2021.
Yep.
So I love to bring this up, especially for the food and beverage industry, because if you think about it, every restaurant, bar, deli, pizza shop, coffee shop, whatever it was forced to operate at restricted capacity through the first half of 2021. So because of that, they're eligible for this tax credit where they can get back a percentage of their payroll. So normally when I bring it up, there's three ways to qualify. One is restricted capacity or we're forced to shut down. Other one being is if you had a drop in revenue compared to 2019, and there's some stipulations with that. Or if you had started your business and started operating after February 15th, 2020.
Yep.
So these three ways, it's not you have to meet two out of the three or, all three. As long as you qualify for one, you qualify for this program.
So restricted capacity seems like one that would apply to every restaurant and food place, right? If you had to restrict your capacity, is there a certain threshold of how much, or just you had to restrict it and you could have made money, you could have even grown your revenue through this whole COVID experience, but as long as you had to restrict your capacity, you may still be eligible for some of these funds?
For sure. Yes. And that's why I love to focus on the food and beverage industry, especially when I'm working with some partners or just, talking to people that may not be overly familiar with it. It's super easy to hone in on food and beverage, any restaurant, bar, anything like that, just because, like you said, even if they were at, only a 10% restriction. In the state of Maine, there was a restriction through May 24th of 2021. So it's just an easy discussion, easy way to find referrals or get in with somebody to talk about something above and beyond payroll, because not for nothing, Randy, you and I could both do payroll. It's some simple math, some tax deposits, nothing crazy.
People say that about mortgages. Just punch in some numbers, spits out a payment. I feel you. I know what you mean.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been such a life changer for so many of my clients. It's saved the businesses for a lot of those in the industry. To kind of give some examples, I've got a small little diner out in Sanford. They ended up securing $52,000. I've got a Latin restaurant with a couple of little cafes. They end up getting $361,000 back.
That's an insane amount of money.
You're going to,
and that just goes right to the business owners in the form of a tax credit.
Yeah, and it's not even you have to wait until you do your taxes. Basically what happens is we would file these amended quarterly returns. They're called a 941X. They're filed every quarter, 941. We do the 941X, which is the amended return. And after the IRS processes it, they get a check in the mail that they can use to pay themselves, do bonuses, do updates, expand, buy a second location. It's I don't want to say free money because taxpayers had paid for it, but it's out there, and if you were impacted, you might as well utilize it.
Absolutely. Someone else will if you don't. So it makes sense. What other type of success stories have you had or your clients have had with it?
Yeah, so I've got a multi-ID. It's like a grocery store. They've got a few grocery stores. Some have gas stations associated with them, kind of like corner stores back in New York. And we had gotten them over $750,000 for their 6 different locations. Combined, got over $750,000.
So $26,000 per employee, right? So that means you have to have a good amount of employees, obviously.
Yeah, or turnover. Yeah. Yes.
So that's pretty remarkable. Like you said, keep some of these businesses alive, especially the ones in the restaurant industry that I think continue to be impacted. It still feels like every restaurant that we go to is understaffed and not at full capacity. So, for these people to be able to take advantage of this stuff, it's good to see. When does this expire, or do these funds run out, or how's that work?
Yeah, great question. So with the amended returns, kind of like if you're going to amend your own personal tax return, you've got 3 years after the filing date. So we're getting close to a 2023, 24 timeframe is going to be the start of when you won't be able to capitalize on that anymore. So, I mean, we're still bumping with it. A lot of people aren't even aware of it still.
Yeah.
Even in the industries that were most impacted by it. So it's a great discussion. I would talk to a restaurant all day, every day, but there's so many others that have benefited from it. If you think of like daycares, somebody had COVID and couldn't come in, you couldn't have all your students or kids in. So we've done a lot with daycares and manufacturing and all sorts of
that it makes a ton of sense too. They're at restricted capacity for a while. Forget the specifics, but I would imagine that certain daycares didn't want to have as many kids as they previously had.
Yeah, and daycares did really well in the sense that everybody wanted to get their kids into daycare or something private like that. But the restriction came from is if, let's just say if I'm an employee there and I came down with COVID, I now have to stay home and I have to test and make sure I'm negative for whatever it was, 10 days, 5 days, depending on the scenario. So if I couldn't come to work and it was a government mandate that I couldn't go to work, well, now you can't fill that classroom with as many kids because of the ratio. So we've gotten, one of our other clients have gotten a little over 300,000. We got a couple of centers at the daycare, but like there's some big money and you might as well take advantage of it and utilize it. Not necessarily take advantage, but utilize the offerings that are out there right now.
Yeah. And that's something you're happy to walk through with people, right? I assume you're happy to talk to a restaurant owner about their potential to take advantage of this at no cost. You make your money if you actually work with the people to execute on this, but you're happy to just talk to anyone that's thinking about it or has never heard of it before.
Yeah, definitely. And some people, that had gotten the PPP loan, it could be a bit of a process. So there was an application for the PPP loan, went through the bank, SBA, then you'd have the forgiveness piece, you'd have to apply for forgiveness. This ERTC program, we basically got a short little questionnaire to find out if you're eligible based on those 3 requirements. There's some stipulations to it, like owner's pay and certain family members, their wages aren't eligible for it.
Yep.
But what's nice is the client doesn't have to do any of the work for the most part. Basically, what we would do is we collect all the payroll information. If they were with us for payroll during that time frame, we already have that info.
Yep.
So that it's finding out when their PPP loans were, how much it was for. So there's a little bit of a short questionnaire that we just need to get some information on because you can't double dip on PPP and ERTC for those wages. So we exclude some of those out of there. We take that out. We do this calculation. We provide you with this nice, long, lengthy Excel spreadsheet. So if you ever get audited by the IRS, you've got documentation to back up how you got to that tax credit figure.
Yeah.
After we do all of the calculations, we provide them with these amended returns, the 941Xs. All the client has to do is sign it and send it off to the IRS. And we give them the address to send it to, and they're done. There's no application.
Make it as easy as possible.
Or anything. Super easy.
But this isn't your primary service. The idea of doing this is to build relationships with businesses and take over their payroll and benefits, right? Is that the ultimate end goal, or?
Yeah, yes. For us, the primary goal is, yes, to have them on board for payroll and help them out with whatever it may be, payroll, taxes, employee relationships, adding on benefits, whether it's 401k or health insurance, and what does that look like, and making sure that they're doing it properly with the right documentation, things written out in the handbook, safety manuals and all of that. So yes, that's like the primary goal. So the employee retention tax credit service is just another piece of the pie of what we're helping out with. And fortunately, we've got the bandwidth at Paychex to do so. I don't know if I've seen any other payroll company other than maybe like an accounting firm that's doing payroll that's done any service with the employee retention tax credit. There's just not a lot of offerings out there for it.
Yep.
So we've really been able to capitalize, and because it's such a life changer, I get passionate about it, especially for the restaurant industry, just because, if you get 50 grand or 100 grand, like there's a year's salary, or you can pay off some of your bills. So it's a life changer and can really save the business from going under.
Like you said, that restaurant and cafe that got $300 and whatever $1,000, that's some real money, in a time where people have been struggling. I'm happy to hear it. So I want to help spread the word on it as much as possible. So we'll keep doing that through the podcast. As far as your keys to success, what has helped lead to your success in your business career?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is, because I always wanted to own my own bar, restaurant, grill, whatever it may be, I like to operate at Paychex as if it's my own business, and I'm using Paychex as my operating system, my customer service support team. And I think when you change that mindset, I'm an employee, to this is my business, this is my reputation on the line, that you hold yourself and your team that much more accountable. And with that being said, I'm a shaker, I'm a mover. if there's an issue, if there's something going on, or you don't know who to contact, like I'm a great quarterback, but I'm also good at shaking trees internally. I've gotten much better at the years at my delivery on that. But I think that's where, clients know that when they come to Jeremy, that he's going to get it done. He's going to get a response. He's going to make sure things are taken care of properly. And, especially when it comes to payroll and taxes, it's important to have somebody that knows what they're doing, knows what to look out for, knows how to plan and prep and give guidance versus kind of just being an order taker. So I think between the accountability and running it like my own business, I like to take the coaching approach or the consultative approach versus the, sales can have a bad image at times. And, I personally get 60-70% of my business from referrals, whether it's clients, my banks, my insurance agents, and CPAs, just because I think of how I carry myself and some of the other value I bring to the table besides just payroll. Payroll kind of pigeonholes me into just payroll, and some people might have the impression of, it's just me, I don't need payroll, or my accountant handles it, or whatever it might be. But there's just so much more that we can bring to the table, at least me personally, that I like to look outside of the box and big picture.
Yep. I appreciate that approach. Sales can get a reputation for being, slick and smooth talking, but I think that probably one of the better ways to do it and have more success is to have that coaching approach, collaborative approach. So same for me. As far as challenges for you, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face in your business? Are there any in particular? Or?
Yeah, moving to Maine was one of the big things because I was working virtually for a couple of months. So that was what it was. I just didn't have relationships out here yet. Mm-hmm. So it was just kind of getting acclimated and getting back into the field. I think at the end of the day, at least with my role and what we do, I think a lot of times the biggest challenge is ourselves. Whether some people might have call reluctance or just don't want to pick up the phone, or you get kind of intimidated by just walking into a business unannounced. Anytime you're calling somebody, you're just stopping in. You also have to remember that you're interrupting them, basically. They weren't anticipating you. So you got to be cognizant of that and respectful of it. And sometimes you catch people on bad days. I know I have bad days. And who wants to be telemarketer or just have somebody come in that may come off as a sales rep? So
making that connection can be challenging sometimes. Like getting that meeting or getting that face-to-face or a few seconds to talk. That part.
Yeah, just, getting that initial wall down. And that's where, having partners like yourself, it warms it up and just kind of helps put those walls down to start the conversation. And from there, I'm easygoing. I'm a straight shooter. I'll tell you the good, the bad, the ugly. If we're not the best fit, or if you've got something else that's going on that might be working well for you, I'll let people know too. And I think that, speaks volumes and people appreciate that. And it's funny, I had one of my clients back in Buffalo. I had helped him get his cleaning company set up. It's been about 9 years ago now. He called me this past October and was like, "Hey, Jeremy, you helped me out with getting my cleaning company set up. Can you help me get this new restaurant set up?" And I haven't talked to this guy. It's probably been 7 years since we had last spoken. And to me, that speaks volumes that if somebody saved you in your phone and it had been, 9 years since you had started working with them, and it had been 7 years since they had their last business, and they call you and still have you in their phone, that I must have done something right.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. That is a testament to you and your level of service, I imagine. So, before I let you go, I see that Bills flag in the back. We were talking about it before. What's going on with Josh Allen?
Yeah, it's funny
is he
because
finish the year out strong? I'm concerned. Leads leading interceptions, elbow is a little bit shaky.
It's funny because I always felt like when Josh Allen wasn't taking the bull by the horns and making things happen on his own is when we weren't winning the games. And I feel like just recently he was just maybe forcing it too much. And that's what it is. Turnovers always are what impact and change the game of who's going to win. And unfortunately, that's been the issue here these past couple of weeks. And it doesn't help that it was a loss to the Jets and to the Dolphins. So those really hurt.
They were my Super Bowl picks. So I'm actually kind of pulling for them. I'm not a Bills guy at all. I have a good friend that's a huge Buffalo guy. Loves Texans the past couple of years. So, I really pulling for him this year. So we'll see what happens.
We've got a solid team. We've got great people all over on the field. So it's just, as long as we can stay healthy and minimize some of those turnovers and let Josh still do his thing. I don't think he needs to necessarily get discouraged from making tough plays and tough throws. And, he's certainly not shy to rush it. But, just if we can stay healthy, apparently, the elbow's doing okay. It's just on watch. But, yeah, Buffalo's used to the roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I think they're playing the Pats one more time this year, so I am looking forward to that game. It'll be a good test for the Pats to see what they're capable of doing. It's been a rough year. It's been a rough few years. So,
Is it the last game of the season that we're playing the Patriots, I
I
think?
actually don't know. I'm bad at that sort of stuff, and it makes sense. And I know that they have the last, I think, couple weeks now being divisional games, so it would make sense that they'd play in one of those last couple weeks. So, looking forward to that.
We'll see, man. We'll see. It'd be nice to get to a Super Bowl again after whatever it's been, close to 30 years almost now. Whatever.
I know. Crazy. What's the best way to get in touch with you before I let you go?
Yeah, thank you. So I don't necessarily have a Paychex social media page, but
Yeah.
cell phone and email is best. I got to say that reception, or at least Verizon reception in the state of Maine, is not great. So cell phone's best, but if I don't answer, call me, leave me a voicemail, or shoot me a text message. So 207-210-2753. Call, text, whatever's convenient, or via email jdcooper@paychex.com, and Paychex is PAYCHEX.com.
Awesome. All right, buddy. Thanks for joining me. We'll spread the word on that employee retention tax credit. Go from there.
Awesome. Randy, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It's been an honor.
Awesome. Have a good one, bud. See ya.